Clara Hayes was beneath a lifted Cadillac when three black SUVs stopped outside her garage. Then Dante Moretti walked through the oil-stained doorway, placed a contract on her workbench, and said, $50,000. Be my wife for 3 months. Clara laughed. Men like him rarely looked twice at women shaped like her. But $50,000 could save her father's garage. Then she saw the condition. 1 bedroom, 1 bed, every night. Dante held her gaze. My enemies will watch us. Once you sign, we can never look fake. Clara slid the contract back across the workbench. A dark fingerprint of motor oil marked its corner. Why me? Dante did not smile. Last Tuesday, my daughter's car broke down 2 blocks from here. Clara remembered the black sedan and the silent little girl in the back seat. She had repaired a loose battery cable, then noticed the child clutching a toy car with a broken wheel. Clara fixed that too. When the driver offered cash, she refused it. That took 20 minutes, Clara said. It doesn't explain marriage. Sofia has barely spoken to anyone outside our home since her mother died. That night, she asked if the mechanic lady would be there again. Sofia remembers kindness longer than danger, Dante said quietly. The answer softened Clara for half a second. Then suspicion returned. So you investigated me. Thoroughly. You are 32. The bank will seize this property in 3 weeks. You kept 2 older mechanics employed after you stopped paying yourself. You repair cars for single mothers who cannot afford the labor. Clara's cheeks burned. You had no right. I needed someone my enemies could not buy. She tapped the number printed on the first page. You are trying to buy me. I am paying for 3 months of your time. Your loyalty will still be your choice. He moved toward the door, leaving the contract behind. This is not only about convincing a court that I have a wife, he said. My uncle wants control of Sofia. If he gets it, my daughter becomes a bargaining chip inside my own family. For the first time, Dante's controlled voice cracked. I need you to help me keep her safe. Dante's wife, Elena, had died in a car accident 2 years earlier. Through her mother, Sofia inherited shares in several family companies. The money would remain protected until Sofia came of age. Unless another guardian gained control of it first, that was what Dante's uncle Vittorio wanted. He had petitioned for guardianship, arguing that Dante's world was too dangerous for a child. Dante traveled often. Armed men guarded his house. Sofia ate alone, refused therapy, and sometimes went days without speaking. Vittorio's lawyers called the Moretti estate a fortress, not a home. If he won, Vittorio would control Sofia's inheritance and gain enough influence to remove Dante from the family leadership. Clara understood the child mattered more than power. The final hearing is in 3 months, Dante said. I must show them Sofia has stability. So you ordered a wife. I found someone she already trusted. Clara turned to the last page. Explain the bed. Vittorio has people inside my house. Separate rooms create separate mornings. Separate mornings create questions. Her expression hardened. Dante spoke carefully. I will not touch you without permission. Sofia will never be required to call you her mother. You may keep working here. If I cross any boundary, you may leave immediately and keep the money. You make everything sound like a business acquisition. Business is easier than asking for help. Clara looked at him then, not at the expensive suit or the guards, but at the exhausted father beneath them. Still, she pushed the pen away. My answer is no. By sunset, however, the bank called. What Frank and Luis had hidden from her finally came into the light, and $50,000 stopped sounding like a price for her dignity. It began to sound like the only way to save everyone who depended on her. The bank manager gave Clara until Friday. After that, a chain would go across the garage doors, and Hayes Auto and Restoration would belong to someone else. When she ended the call, Frank silently placed 2 unopened pay envelopes on the desk. What are these? Mine, he admitted. Luis has his too. We haven't cashed them in 2 months. Luis appeared from the service bay carrying a cardboard box. He planned to quit before Clara had to fire him. Above them, rainwater dripped dangerously close to an electrical panel. Across the street, a bank contractor photographed the faded sign bearing her father's name. Frank touched her shoulder. This place was your father's dream. It doesn't have to become your grave. Clara looked at the red shop rag, her father had tied beside his old tool cabinet. The garage was more than concrete and lifts. It was Frank and Luis's last steady work. It was where neighborhood children brought bicycles with bent chains. It was where mothers received repairs and paid when they could. It was the last place Clara could still hear her father telling her that broken machines were only puzzles asking for patience. She called Dante. "I have 3 conditions," she said when he returned. "Sofia never has to call me Mom. You do not buy my garage and use it to control me. And inside that bedroom, my boundaries are absolute." "Agreed. You didn't even negotiate." "Some terms should never be negotiated." Clara signed. The oil stain from her thumb remained beside her name. 3 days later, she entered the Moretti estate with 1 suitcase and a wrench tucked inside her purse. She expected guards, suspicion, and whispers. She did not expect Sofia to stare at the wedding ring and ask, "How much did this one cost?" The question silenced the entrance hall. Dante crouched beside his daughter. "Sofia," Clara stopped him. The child was not being rude. She was checking whether the adults would lie. Clara examined the gold band. "Less than your father's watch. More than I could afford." Sofia studied her, then walked upstairs without another word. It was not a welcome, but it was honest. That night, Dante opened the bedroom door. 1 bed stood in the center. "Of course," Clara muttered. "A man with 30 rooms owns 1 bed." She arranged 6 pillows down the mattress like a border wall. "Your side. My side. The border is legally recognized." Dante removed his tie. "Do not confuse this arrangement with affection. Do not confuse your cheekbones with a personality." His mouth almost moved. Clara decided it might have been a smile. They argued about the temperature. Dante slept in cold air. Clara refused to freeze for his dramatic image. She placed a small wrench on her nightstand. "Tool or weapon?" he asked. "I haven't decided." He changed in the bathroom and stayed on his half of the bed. Clara noticed how he checked the locked door, the windows, and the shadow beneath the adjoining room before switching off the lamp. Hours later, 1 pillow slipped to the floor. In her sleep, Clara pulled the blanket away from her shoulder. Dante watched from the darkness, then raised the edge of the blanket without touching her skin. At breakfast, Sofia stared at the 5 pillows still standing. "Did one escape?" she asked. Clara buttered her toast. It rejected the political situation. Sofia's lips twitched. Dante saw it. He also saw his daughter eat 3 bites instead of 1. The marriage had not yet convinced any court. But on the first morning, Clara had already done something Dante's money, guards, and authority had failed to do. She had made Sofia want to remain at the table. 2 mornings later, a crash came from the library. Sofia stood beside the toy car Clara had repaired. 1 wheel lay across the floor. Dante picked it up. "I'll have another one delivered." "No," Clara said. Sofia folded her arms, waiting for a fight. Clara sat on the rug several feet away and opened her small toolkit. You don't replace something just because it's broken. She removed the bent axle without asking Sofia why she had damaged it. She did not mention Elena or grief. She simply sorted the tiny pieces in a row. "Broken doesn't mean finished," Clara said. "It means we find out what still works." Sofia slowly lowered herself to the rug. "The wheel still works," she whispered. "Good. What else?" Together they straightened the bracket. Clara left the final screw loose and offered Sofia the screwdriver. The child tightened it carefully. Dante watched from the doorway, looking more uncertain than he ever did around armed men. Clara held up a pair of safety glasses. "So, you can guard the door, or you can help." He removed his jacket and sat beside them. His hands were too large for the tiny screws, and Sofia corrected him twice. By the second correction, she was smiling. At first, he held the screwdriver like a weapon. Clara adjusted his grip, and Sofia laughed aloud. Dante froze at the sound, as if laughter were the rarest thing he owned. That night, Sofia paused outside the bedroom. "Will you still be here tomorrow?" "That's what the contract says," Clara answered. Sofia nodded and left. The word should have been comforting. Instead, Clara heard the limit inside them. 3 months. A final hearing. Then a garage saved, and a family left behind. When she climbed into bed, only 4 pillows remained between her and Dante. Poor border security, he observed. Budget cuts. In the dark, neither spoke about Sofia's question. But Dante began listening for Clara's footsteps each evening, and Clara began recognizing the moment his breathing changed after she entered the room. The Moretti estate changed through small rebellions. Clara insisted Sofia eat breakfast in the kitchen, instead of alone upstairs. She made the guards knock before entering. When the coffee machine stopped working, a housekeeper tried to throw it away. Clara repaired it in 10 minutes and accused the staff of conspiring against perfectly good appliances. Most importantly, she forced Dante to leave meetings for dinner. "I am in the middle of something," he protested one evening. "So is Sofia. She's in the middle of waiting for her father." He arrived at the table 4 minutes later. Soon, Sofia began telling stories about school. The guards learned to endure flour on their suits when she and Clara baked. Laughter traveled down hallways that had sounded like a museum since Elena died. One afternoon, the senior housekeeper referred to Clara as the mechanic in front of visiting relatives. Dante's voice cut across the room. "You will address my wife as Mrs. Moretti." He did not raise his volume. He did not need to. Everyone understood. Clara met his eyes. For the first time, his public protection did not feel like part of the performance. Their nights changed too. Clara fell asleep reviewing garage invoices, and Dante gently removed the papers from her hand. During a storm, Sofia had a nightmare and climbed between them. By morning, she held Clara's fingers in one hand and Dante's in the other. Neither adult wanted to move first. Later, Clara noticed Dante still wore his watch in bed. Why? "I have slept lightly since I was 17. That isn't sleeping. That's waiting for something bad to happen." He looked toward the dark window. "In my family, they are the same thing." Clara removed another pillow from the border. At the family gala a week later, she entered on Dante's arm, wearing a deep green dress. The room was filled with jewels, old money, and people who measured worth before learning names. Clara thought the hardest part would be pretending to love Dante. She was wrong. The hardest part was hiding how real his hand felt against hers. For once, he wanted the evening to last forever. Camille Voss looked Clara up and down. How refreshing. Most men keep their mechanics in the garage. Another woman called Clara's fitted dress brave, with the careful smile of someone delivering an insult as a gift. Clara had spent years hearing people treat her body as an apology. She refused to offer one now. Dante leaned closer. "Do you want to leave?" He did not order her to stay for appearances. He left the choice with her. "No," Clara said. "I want them to finish embarrassing themselves." Before dinner, a restored Italian roadster was presented for auction. The engine turned, coughed, and died. 2 specialists examined it, while wealthy guests offered useless theories. Clara listened once. "Open the hood." Camille laughed, but Dante handed Clara the keys. She found a wire attached to the wrong terminal, corrected it, and started the engine within minutes. Its clean roar silenced the ballroom. Dante faced the family council. "My wife repairs what the rest of us are too proud to understand." Then he offered his hand. They danced beneath the chandeliers while every eye followed them. "They were wrong about you," he murmured. Clara held his gaze. "You were too." "Yes." The admission drew them closer than praise could have. His hand stayed firm at her waist, never possessive, never ashamed. For the first time, Clara crossed a crowded room without wondering whether anyone wished she were smaller or quieter. Back in their room, the remaining pillows fell during the night. Neither rebuilt the wall. But the next morning, Luis called Clara about Elena's wrecked car, which had remained in storage since the accident. Something inside its braking system did not match the official report. By sunset, the space between Clara and Dante would become wider than 6 pillows could ever make it. Clara met Luis at the garage after midnight. Beneath Elena's damaged car, they found clean tool marks on an old brake fitting. The line had not failed naturally. Someone had loosened it before the crash. Vittorio had gained the most from Elena's death. If Dante learned that, Clara feared grief would become rage. One violent order could cost him Sofia forever, so she hid the photographs and planned to speak with a lawyer first. Dante discovered her empty side of the bed. He followed her and found the car lifted above the service bay. When Clara explained, he did not shout. His quietness hurt more. "You trust me beside you every night," he said. But not with the truth. I was trying to protect you. From whom? Vittorio, or myself. Clara could not answer quickly enough. Dante nodded. Then you still believe the worst thing people say about me. He drove home alone. That night, he slept in the chair by the window. Clara lay in the bed, close enough to hear him breathe, but unable to reach him. Near dawn, Clara rose and placed a blanket across his shoulders. Dante woke before it touched him. Their eyes met. Both carrying apologies, neither knew how to speak. He accepted the blanket, but not her hand, and that restraint broke her heart completely. The distance felt larger than the six-pillow wall. Sofia sensed it immediately. She stopped coming to breakfast and carried the repaired toy car back to her room. The house that had learned to breathe became careful and silent again. Clara had hidden the truth to preserve a family. Instead, her fear was breaking it apart. Then Vittorio came to the garage, with proof that he knew about the marriage contract, and a check large enough to make Clara disappear. Vittorio arrived alone, wearing a pleasant smile that never reached his eyes. He placed a check for $100,000 beside Clara's tools. "Twice what my nephew paid," he said. "Sign a statement admitting the marriage is false. Leave his house. Forget what you found in Elena's car. The amount could replace the roof, modernize every lift, and guarantee Frank and Luis years of work." Vittorio touched the contract copy in his coat pocket. "You were never his wife. You were an employee who slept in the right bed." The words found Clara's deepest fear. Perhaps Dante defended her only because the hearing required it. Perhaps every warm glance had been gratitude, not love. She looked at the check, then tore it in half. "You made one mistake," she said. "Dante paid me to enter his house. He never paid me to protect his daughter." This time, Clara hid nothing. Her phone had recorded the conversation. She carried it directly to Dante. "I was afraid of what you might become," she told him. "That did not give me the right to decide who you are." He listened to the recording twice. Anger tightened his hands, but he called his lawyer instead of his soldiers. He turned the break evidence over through legal channels. He also asked Clara to stay while he spoke. Even when the lawyer described possible criminal charges, it was Dante's quiet way of proving that truth would no longer be kept behind locked doors between them inside their shared home. It was not immediate forgiveness. It was something more difficult, a choice that to rebuild trust. That night, Dante returned to the bed. One pillow remained between them. Clara pushed it onto the floor. Their faces drew close. Dante waited, leaving the final distance to her. Clara began to cross it. A knock struck the door. The family council had moved the hearing forward. Vittorio had distributed the contract to every member. By morning, the world would know exactly how much Dante had paid for his wife. Vittorio stood before the council and read every humiliating term aloud. $50,000, 3 months, one shared room, no required affection, and Clara's freedom to leave after the guardianship hearing. "This woman is not a wife," he said. "She is a desperate mechanic Dante Moretti purchased to play mother." Dozens of faces turned toward Clara. She felt reduced to her debts, her body, and a number printed on paper. If she left, perhaps Dante could claim she had deceived him. Perhaps he could still keep Sofia. Clara rose. Dante caught her hand. "Stay." He took the contract from Vittorio. On its corner remained the black oil mark from the day Clara signed. "I hired her," Dante said. "I knew her garage was failing. I used her need to solve my problem. I turned marriage into strategy, because strategy was the only language I trusted." Then he tore the contract in half. The torn pages fell beside his shoes. No guard moved to retrieve them. In that moment, Dante chose a vulnerable truth over the perfect lie that had protected his power for years without any hesitation. "I paid Clara to stand beside me. No contract made her sit on the floor and repair my daughter's favorite toy. No money made her bring me evidence when she could have accepted twice my offer. No clause made this house feel alive." He looked at Clara, with no counsel and no power left between them. "And no clause made me fall in love with her." Vittorio laughed. "A confession does not make this marriage real." "No," a small voice said. "We do." Sofia stepped forward. She said Clara had never asked to be called mom and had never tried to replace Elena. Clara had taught her that broken things could be repaired. She had also taught Dante to sit beside his daughter, instead of standing at the door like a guard. The lawyer played Vittorio's recorded bribe. Then he presented the break evidence. Vittorio's allies went silent. His guardianship petition collapsed, and the council suspended him while prosecutors examined Elena's death. Dante did not claim victory. He faced Clara. "Clara Hayes, you owe me nothing now. Will you still choose us?" She looked at Sofia, then at the man who had surrendered control in front of everyone. "Only if I control the thermostat." Dante smiled. This time, no one could mistake it. When the 3 months ended, Clara returned to the garage and found no secret purchase agreement. Dante had kept his promise. Instead, he offered a transparent investment. Clara would keep full control. Frank and Luis would remain employed. A new community program would repair cars for struggling families. Sofia would receive a small workbench of her own. Nothing was given as charity. The investment would be repaid from profits, and every decision required Clara's signature. Dante had learned that loving her did not mean rescuing her. It meant respecting the life she had already built with her own hands. Clara accepted only after rewriting 6 clauses. "I expected nothing less from my wife," Dante said. Their real wedding took place inside the garage. Frank and Luis stood as witnesses. Sofia carried the rings in Clara's father's old metal box for bolts. The faded Hayes Auto and Restoration sign remained above them. That night, 6 pillows formed a familiar wall across the bed. Dante raised an eyebrow. "Do we still need the border?" Clara threw the pillows to the floor one by one. Before lying down, Dante removed his watch and placed it on the nightstand. Clara understood what the small act meant. For the first time since he was 17, he allowed himself to sleep without waiting for something terrible to happen. At dawn, Sofia ran into the room and settled between them, holding one of Clara's hands and one of Dante's. Outside, the garage sign was still scratched by weather and years. Dante had not replaced it with polished gold or added the Moretti name. He had only repaired its wiring himself. As morning darkness faded, Clara's father's name lit again. The $50,000 saved her garage. But the bed Clara agreed to share saved 3 people who had forgotten what a family was supposed to feel like.